This is
Make It Plain.
Make it plain.
MIP
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make it plain.
Get woke.
President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats kept their commitment to our community because our votes make the difference. Our president helped get America back to work, provided funding for our families and small businesses, and reaffirmed that we have a seat at the table. He appointed more Black women judges to the U.S. Court of Appeals than any other president, placed Black men at the helm of our country's Defense Department, Environmental Protection Agency, and in senior roles in the West Wing. And we just witnessed the confirmation of the first Black female U.S. Supreme Court Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson. Republicans disrespectfully tried to block her, discounting her sterling record, and they continue to say no to progress for the American people. Our president selected a nominee with exceptional credentials, impeccable character, and an unwavering dedication to the Constitution and we the people. Congratulations to the Honorable Ketanji Brown Jackson on your historic confirmation, and thank you, President Biden and Democrats, for the promises made and the promises kept.
Paid for by the Democratic National Committee, Democrats.org. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is the latest ad produced by the Democratic National Committee that is being played on Black media. We're honored to have with us the chair of the DNC, our friend and brother, Jaime Harrison. Hey, brother, how are you today?
I'm great, brother. How are you?
Just fine. Good to see you, and congratulations on that ad. That's an important message. Are you confident that will mobilize our community to get out and vote in this, I guess, for lack of a better word, somewhat, I don't know if it's apathetic, but, you know, are people as excited in 2022 as they were in 2020? What do you think?
Well, you know, I think people are still, we have the lingering effect of COVID that's still lingering all over people's lives and what they do. I know even in my house, you know, we have a 7-year-old and now a 3-year-old, and we are restricted in terms of what we can do because our 3-year-old still is not vaccinated. And so there's certain things that we can't do that we were able to do a few years ago, and it's putting restrictions because we want to protect him. And I think that's a big thing for so many people right now. I think by the time the summer rolls around, we should have vaccine available for young kids under the age of 5. And I think that's going to change the mindset for a lot of those families. And, you know, Mark, in terms of that ad, that's one of many ads that will come where we will constantly remind the American people, and particularly Black folks, about what this president, what Democrats have been able to deliver. We're even hearing talks now about whether or not the student loan forgiveness. For the past 2 years, since Joe Biden has been president, people haven't paid one penny on student loans because he has deferred the payment of student loans for the last year and a half, almost 2 years now. And this administration is looking for a way and a pathway to address the student loan issue that so many Black folks are dealing with. I know, you know, on a personal note, I graduated law school with $160,000 of debt. My wife has $90,000 of debt. So when we came together and got married, $250,000 of debt in our household, right? And so here in South Carolina, that's a nice house. But we got to give that payment to Sally Mae every month. And so in no other country in the world do you see young people who are saddled with so much debt starting out their lives. And so I know this administration is very focused on that. They've already made some changes at the Department of Education that some people are already feeling. There are a number of people who've gotten their student loans waived because of public service and the like. And we're going to see more from the administration on that in the weeks and the months to come as well. So really, really excited about the progress that's been made there. This president made some promises, and he is hell-bent on keeping those promises to the American people and specifically to the Black community.
In South Carolina, that's not only a house. In South Carolina, that's a woman who loves you. Her brother with $106,000 in debt. Lots of today now they want to see, well, what's it all about? How much money you owe? But no, that's a beautiful thing. God bless her. But honestly, the hue and cry has been for Biden to relieve and forgive student debt with a stroke of a pen. And some people think if he just did that, that would be a serious game changer for the fall. Is that something? Does that make sense? Is that something that's likely?
Well, I think what the administration is doing is exploring what their options are. It is debatable whether or not that can actually happen. There's some people who think that he can through executive order. There's some people who believe that he can't. And so there's discussions right now just looking at where the administration is on that. They have not made a final decision yet on what he's going to do. We know, though, that people aren't going to pay again on their student loans until after August, and then they will reevaluate by that time to see what other steps they can take, if any, to relieve some of the pressure off of the American people. But I know a number of people who've been able to buy homes because of the deferment of their student loan payment over the past year and a half or so, and they've been able to do other things to utilize that money to improve the status of themselves and their families. And so it's been that only happened because we got Joe Biden in the White House. And so I know this president's really committed to continuing to give as much relief as possible. I mean, that's why we were trying to get prescription drug costs down. That's why we're trying to get some relief for families in terms of child care. This president understands how hard it is for a lot of Americans and wants to address it as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
Very, very important. It would seem to me, too, and you've been outspoken on your Twitter account, that we might need some ads, won't we, to continue to highlight what the consequences would be.
Amen.
Lord have mercy. I mean, and unfortunately, we we just have to go there?
Well, Rev, listen to this. It's important that people understand that elections are about contrast and about choices. Listen, you may not be happy. You may have wanted things to happen more quickly in terms of this administration, but Joe Biden has been moving. Now, I want folks to understand what the contrast is. If you hand over the keys of Congress to the Kevin McCarthy's of the world, or the Mitch McConnells of the world, you know how we're all celebrating Ketanji Brown Jackson right now and being the first Black woman on the Supreme Court. Let me give you a guarantee. If Mitch McConnell is the majority leader of the United States Senate, had he been the majority leader of the United States Senate right now, we would not be celebrating Ketanji Brown Jackson going to the Supreme Court, because he has already said, and he's already indicated, if he gets the majority back, then Joe Biden may not see another Supreme Court justice nomination in his term if one came open, that they would not even consider having hearings. And if you don't believe Mitch McConnell, look at what he did when Barack Obama had that opportunity. He took that away from the president of the United States. These folks are all about their power. They're all about fraudulently getting that power if they can. They're all about stoking up fears about the people. And it's all because they want to be in charge. And we can't allow that to happen. You had 193 Republicans who went to the floor of the House and voted against dropping down the cost of insulin. Some people are paying thousands of dollars in terms a month for insulin. We were trying to drop that down to $35 a month. 193 Republicans voted no. Yeah. People need to understand there is a difference, a stark difference between having Joe Biden and Democrats in the House and the Senate and having Republicans back in charge.
Jim, I think it'd be good if we did a primer on that just briefly. When it comes to the insulin issue, what's that about? Is that their relationship with the pharmaceutical companies?
Well, it has to be.
Yeah,
it has to be about, all these the pharmaceutical companies stroke these folks big checks, and they don't want to see that gravy train dry up. And so it always comes down to, how can they stay in power? How can they get more money? And who always gets the short end of the stick? The American people. Back in the day when Trump was president, you remember they passed that huge tax cut. And there were people like Lindsey Graham who said, the reason why we have to do this, not because it was good policy, not because the American people were saying, yeah, cut Elon Musk taxes even more so he's not paying anything else. They were doing it because Lindsey Graham said, because our donors will take us to task if we don't. So, American people, we got to wake up. We got to understand what the choice is. And if we give these people the power again, and you can give it to them, not either you vote for them or you stay home.
Yeah.
Those are the two ways that you give them the power again. You either vote for them or you stay home.
And staying, and that's the same, really, Jamie. If we stay home, that's voting for them, because if we all vote,
exactly right,
it's more of us than there are of them. You got a tweet out here. The GOP has an entire damn caucus of delinquents, orgies, cocaine parties, white nationalist meetings, lies, revoked licenses, fraud, coup attempts, and that is the tip of the iceberg. And of course, you're referring to McCarthy being on his boat or whatever. And we had the news of Madison Cawthorn having a gun at the airport.
For the second time. Yeah.
So you're right. I mean, there are all these corrupt stories about them, and the hearings, the January 6th hearings are coming up. I mean, it's only going to get worse between now and the fall. Hopefully that's a case that will be made, and a case that will impress the American voters as to the importance. Again, folks, if we can look at it and say, oh, this is disgusting, we're mad about it, but I'm not that interested in voting. Literally, when you don't go to the polls, that's a vote for them, isn't it, Jamie?
That's exactly right. It is a vote for them. I often tell people, back here in South Carolina, I said, think about this. Pick that person at work, that person that you just don't like, because they are contrary to everything you do, or that neighbor that's down the street that you just don't get along with, who their values don't align with your own. When you don't go vote and that person does, you are in essence giving those people the authority, the license to determine what policies, what representatives represent you, your family, and your community. And if you're fine with that, stay at home. But if you're not fine with that, if you want to make sure that your taxes are utilized for things that you believe in, the better schools, making sure that the roads are fixed, making sure that you have people who value you as a person, to make sure that your police forces are representative of your community and are going to treat the people the right way. If you want all of those things, then you got to make sure that you exercise your right and to choose the right people to represent you, to use your money in the best way possible that aligns with your values. But if you don't care about all of that, that's what you're saying when you stay home. And so what we're asking is, you pick the issues that are important to you. Make sure you find members of Congress, state house people, city council people, governors, senators who represent you. And we see what happens when 80 million of us get up, stand up, and vote for change. You get a Ketanji Brown Jackson, the first Black woman on the Supreme Court. You get child poverty cut in half in 1 year. You get hundreds of millions of dollars sent to our historically Black colleges and universities. You get broadband coming to rural communities that hadn't seen it in forever, right? You see positive changes. And hopefully we get some student loan reform and we get some changes there. I mean, I can tell you what, Rev, right now there are a lot of people, 75 people who got sentence commutations yesterday and 3 full pardons. And you know why they got it? Is because Joe Biden is in the White House and understood that if you had a drug charge, you shouldn't be serving life in prison because you had a minor drug charge. There are things that make a difference. And the thing that makes the most difference is exercising your right to vote.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, those sentences and commutations, pardons, including the pardon of the Secret Service agent, Abraham Bolden, who served in the Kennedy administration and was really accused. This is before we had whistleblower laws.
Yeah.
And the brother talked about what happened a little too loudly, and the failures, the incompetences that he saw, and he went down on some trumped up charges. But yeah, obviously we need to highlight what happens if they get in. For example, I heard from some of our friends in the DC government just yesterday. They're threatening to take away home rule, y'all, from the District of Columbia if they get the House back. So, that's something else that we need to be concerned about.
And then on the flip side of this, Mark, if we can get 2 more votes in the United States Senate, guess what? We can get 2 United States senators in the District of Columbia. Give them the full voting rights that they deserve.
That's right.
Right. So, folks, that's the yin and the yang. If you stay home, then they can take away the rights of the folks in DC. But if you go out and vote, and we get 2 more votes in the United States Senate, we can give the District of Columbia 2 senators, 2 senators, and a member of Congress. So we can do this. The power is in our own hands, but we got to decide whether or not we're going to utilize it. DC
statehood, y'all. So what is in place though? Because when we get ready to go vote, we know that there's going to be a lot of little trickeration this year.
Yeah,
we didn't get our voting rights protected as we should because of our friend Joe Manchin, Lord have mercy, and Kirsten Sinema. But what is the DNC doing, and what resources is it providing to those who may face voter intimidation, being sent away from polls, being misdirected, being kicked off voter rolls? How are we combating that?
So, usually on the voter protection front, what we've done in the past is, folks wait until August of the election year to start thinking, oh, well, we may need to get a few lawyers together so that we can have some kind of voter protection program. Well, Mark, when I became chair, I said one of the first things I want to do was to make sure that we rebuild and revitalize our voter protection program. Vice President Harris and I announced on the campus of Howard University a commitment of $25 million to build the largest voter protection program that we've ever had in the history of the Democratic Party. So we have, for almost over a year now, have had boots on the ground, voter protection staff in the key battleground states across this country, on the ground, building out a voter protection apparatus. Because I didn't know whether or not the bill was going to pass the House and the Senate. And so I knew that, the one thing for certain in politics, you don't get time back. And so time is the most precious thing, even more than money. It is the most precious resource you have. And so I knew that we needed to have the time to build out this mechanism. And if we passed a voting bill, that's fine. We had even more protection. But if we didn't pass it, this is going to be the foundation for how we make sure that people can mobilize and get to the polls. And that once they get to the polls, that their vote actually counts. And so we've set aside millions of dollars for lawsuits that we are ready. So if the Republicans try anything, we're taking them straight to court. And we got the money set aside to do that. But we also have the staff on the ground right now that have been working for almost a year, building out voter protection programs to keep people educated so that we can mobilize them, get them to the polls, and make sure their votes are counted once they cast.
And obviously, some Democrats argue that one or the other, and that's all good, folks. And be diligent, report what you're seeing.
Go to iwillvote.com.
Yes,
that is our centralized mechanism. iwillvote.com. We have a 24-hour service where you can call in during your primaries or the general election. You can call in, but go to iwillvote.com and find out, in particular in your state, where you can go to register if you have any problems at the polls. And we have lawyers on our hotline ready to take those calls and to help you resolve any issue that you're facing.
iwillvote.com, folks. The other thing too, some are suggesting that the more Trump gets involved in the elections, that helps. But I don't think it's just him. Ron DeSantis is really clowning.
Yes.
And I mean, that's just something else that we can show to people. I mean, I guess he's the front runner if Trump is not the front runner in 2024. But people need to see this is who attacks Disney World? I thought everybody liked Disney World. What Disney World doing about it? But that's the type of thing that really brings up the point that these folks are absolutely fascist and fundamentalist.
Amen to that. You know, I've said this for well over a year. I said, you know, the Republican Party is not the Republican Party we used to know.
Yeah.
That party was bad enough, but this party is on something brand new. This is a party that is built on fraud. And why did I say that? All of the projection that they've been having out there, that there's been fraudulent elections and Democrats have been stealing. No, you know who's been doing fraud? The Republicans. The chief of staff of Donald Trump was registered to vote in 2 places. And so right now he is being investigated in North Carolina for maybe fraudulently voting in North Carolina. So they project all of this stuff on, they say other people doing it is in essence what they're doing. So fraud, fear, all of the stuff from the CRT to targeting youth and trans kids and everything else, that's the only thing, that's the only superpower the Republican Party has. And the last thing is fascism. Folks, if you don't know what fascism is, then you got to Google it, because this is what the Republican Party is about. It is about creating a government which controls everything down to morality, determining morality for us and what we can and we cannot do. And that's what the Republican Party is doing right now. Fraud, fear, fascism. The only way that we win back is, folks, if we become and remain our status as the party of hope, party of aspiration, a party that's actually fighting for democracy in this country. And so in order to stay at that and to keep those flames of chaos at bay, we got to make sure we go out and vote.
Jaime Harrison, folks, the chair of the Democratic National Committee, our brother, doing great work as always, representing all of us. And the bottom line is, folks, we've got to get out and vote. We've got to get out and get involved in this. As we've been saying, if we don't, then that's very costly to us. You feeling confident, Jaime? I mean, the history says that the party in power in the White House always loses in midterms. Give us some confidence on that. That does not have to be. We made history. Women, y'all, we made history. We ain't had black women on Supreme Court. That wasn't supposed to happen.
Nope.
So why can't we do something, make some more history in November, right?
That's exactly right. Well, you know, this is what I tell people all the time. In 2020, the pundits also say, you know, incumbent presidents don't rarely lose election. Well, for the first time in over 20 years, an incumbent president is golfing right now in Florida because he lost. The pundits also said, Mark, well, you know, Democrats can't win runoff elections in Georgia. Well, hell, we didn't win one, we won 2. And that changed the United States Senate and gave us a 50-50 majority in the United States Senate. And so I know if the 80 million people who came out and voted for change in 2020 decided to come out again one more time, we won't just win and keep our majorities in the House and Senate. We will pick up state houses and governor's mansions and all the like, and therefore change the course of this country, from student loans to housing to everything else that everybody's been looking forward to. But we got to increase our majorities in the House and the Senate. We got to make sure we take over some of these governor's mansions to stop some of the craziness that we are seeing in these states. Again, Mark, you mentioned it. Ron DeSantis is attacking the biggest employer in the state of Florida. 75,000 people work for Disney. That's not even counting the people and the organizations and the businesses that are built up just to serve all the people who come in for Disney World, right? Most people don't even step into Florida but for Disney. And so this guy is going at the heart of the economy there, and he doesn't care. You got Greg Abbott, who has cost in Texas $9 billion to the U.S. government because he wants to play around with the trucks coming across the border. Hundreds of millions of dollars of food wasted because of his foolishness. Folks, it's time to wake up. We got to get rid of these people. And if they think, this is what they think that we aren't going to come out and vote. They think that we're just going to sit at home and be lethargic and all that other stuff, and they can do whatever the hell they want to do. We got to prove them wrong. We have to prove them wrong.
You're right. And folks, you just heard a DNC chair articulate the importance of the down ballot too, because that's where the redistricting decisions made. And frankly, folks, again, police aren't governed nationally. You know, police are governed at the state and local level, election board, all the things that affect it. This CRT fight, that's local.
That's local.
That's local. So everything down ballot is important, and it's important here. The DNC chair say that. And look, if you don't like Joe Manchin, he challenged us. He said, what did he say? He said, if you all don't like what I'm doing, elect more progressives. Okay, so here's our opportunity to do just that.
If you're in Pennsylvania, if you're in North Carolina, if you're in Wisconsin, if you're in Florida, if you're in Kentucky, Missouri, Louisiana, you got plenty of opportunities. And if you are in the Georgia, New Hampshire, Nevada, Arizona, let's make sure we keep those 4 Democrats who are running in those states, because we need them in order to keep our 50-50 majority. But we also have some opportunities to add a few more seats. And I hope folks in those states will gear up and do all that they can to support the Democrats who are running to pick up some of those Senate seats.
Lastly, speaking of Georgia, though, what do you say to people? And this is something I may have underestimated. Warnock is an impeccable senator.
Yes.
But somebody had to remind me. I grew up when I was a kid in high school when Herschel Walker was playing the University of Georgia. I forgot how popular he was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and somebody hit him and said, Mark, you don't remember that? This is Herschel Walker in Georgia. And I was like, wow, I didn't think about that. Does that concern you? I mean, it seems as if there are those who are willing to ignore his constant gaffes. And, you know, honestly, I feel bad for the brother, because I don't think Herschel's well.
No, he's not well.
He's not. I mean, that's probably documented too.
Yeah.
You know, it's you know, Jamie, when we had an HR 40 hearing last year, you know, Herschel, he came and testified, brother. And this is literally what he said. We don't need no reparations. My uncle was lynched by the mob and nobody did nothing about that. And we said, Herschel, you realize what you just said? You just made the argument. He didn't even understand. So the brother's not well. No. But that being the case, he can't be the senator. We can't have that, because he's a Trump representative. He's backed by Trump. What do you say to Georgia voters about what they need to be doing? Because there's a couple of polls out there that have him up, and that concerns me. Yeah. And I think it's just because of the name, the fame,
That's exactly right.
The running back. He's not running for running back.
No. Well, and folks have to understand this. I mean, in the end of the day, this is not about notoriety and fame. It's about, you know, who's going to best serve you and your family and your communities. Who's going to make sure the roads and the bridges are paved? Who's going to make sure that the broadband is in the communities? Who's going to make sure that the water is clean, that you're drinking and using for your food? Who's going to make sure that we address the issues of student loans and housing and all? Herschel Walker doesn't understand any of those issues, let alone have a position on them. You know, the only position he's going to have is the one that the staffers give him. This guy is not, he's just not all there. He is really, and this is not me being partisan. This is just speaking the truth. He is not all there. And we've seen the bad behavior that Herschel will have, from the domestic abuse and the allegations there that his ex-wife has had, to the fact that this guy has put a loaded gun to his head and played Russian roulette. Don't let him play Russian roulette with your life and your life and the life of the folks that you love.
Yeah.
So it's important that we honestly put the D and the R aside and say, who is best equipped to serve me and my family? And there is no choice between Reverend Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker.
Y'all hear that, Georgia? Let everybody in Georgia know that too. We all know somebody in Georgia, even if for those of us who don't live there. We all have relatives there and friends. IWillVote.com. Jaime Harrison, the chair of the Democratic National Committee. Thank you as always, my brother.
Thank you, my friend.
Thanks for getting woke and listening to Make It Plain. As always, perform an act of kindness on behalf of an elder or young person. Write a letter to a sister or brother who just so happens to find her or himself incarcerated. Offer libations to the ancestors upon whose sturdy shoulders we all now stand. And above all, Give thanks to the God of your understanding by whatever name you call her and him. All God asks of us is that we give each other love. Thanks for giving MIP love. And please remember to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. If all hearts and minds are clear, it has been made plain.